What is going on, everybody? This is Radishhead, and welcome to the first episode of a series where I'm going to be going through the latest in Upland news and showing you some of the data that's going on behind the scenes in the world of Upland, showing you where's hot, where's not, and my thoughts on where you should be investing your hard-earned UPIX in the metaverse. So first of all, here we've got some of the top news for today, and of course the Santa Clara region has been sold out last night for non-FSA buyers. So if you're FSA, I still believe there's a few properties lurking around there, and I would highly recommend picking those up if you are an FSA buyer. Those Santa Clara properties, I guarantee, are going to go up in value in the midterm. Santa Clara, very compact, very valuable piece of the metaverse, and I think as Upland continues to grow, Santa Clara is going to become more and more desirable. Next on my list of today's news, we've got the Upland Legits announcement, of course. And if you guys haven't heard about this Upland Legits, Upland have managed to get a partnership with I believe it's 2,000 NFL players, where they're going to be doing some kind of NFT integration with Upland. They're going to be selling minted products, memorabilia, stuff that's signed. Is going to be huge. Like, if you're an NFL fan or not, I mean, if you couldn't tell by my accents, we don't really do NFL over here in the UK, but anything that's going to get people interested in Upland, that's something that I can get behind. And thirdly, and definitely not least, is the Kansas City and Rutherford announcements. These two cities are going to be launching simultaneously on the 10th of September. I always speculated whether Upland would try to do a simultaneous city release as the game continues to grow, because you really have to think about where you want to be investing in the future. Right now, we don't have enough information for me to say definitively which one I would recommend going for. Having said that, Rutherford, I personally prefer the East Coast, and it's a very small town, so I feel like the property is going to be quite valuable there, possibly in the future. So I'm leaning Rutherford. They also announced they're going to be releasing a lot more cities in the future, including what is it, on the South Coast, with the Mardi Gras festival. New Orleans is coming alongside others like Boston, but I might be saving some UPIX for New Orleans because that is a big name, like Chicago. So I'm quite excited about that. But that is today's news. Let's move on to the data. Now, I do appreciate I'm in the way a little bit here. Let me hide myself for a minute. So, this is sort of the top level data that I've collected for Upland. All of this comes from UPX World. It's a fantastic resource, and I'll link it in the description. If you guys aren't using UPX World, what are you doing? It is the tool for scouting out property prices and so on. But you can see in the top left here is the unminted property numbers in orange there, and you can see that it's dropping quite consistently over time. It's going down by about 2,000-3,000 a day. Certainly in 2 or 3 months, I think Chicago is going to be pretty much fully sold out. Obviously, that number will increase, the number of unminted properties, as new cities are launched, but as the game continues to grow, you'd expect the number of properties being minted per day also going down quicker. So there you go. I'm going to jump over to the top right of the screen now, where you can see in all of Upland where were the most minted neighborhoods yesterday. So I always take the data from yesterday just to get a a full 24-hour period, so it's consistent across different days. And you can see that Portage Park is the #1 most minted neighborhood yesterday, and of course Chicago actually looking very popular there on the most minted neighborhoods list. Although it is worth mentioning that Santa Clara, North Central, 228 mints yesterday. That's a big deal. So certainly there were a lot of people trying to get those last few Santa Clara properties up in North Central. And there's a few here in Cleveland. You've got Old Brooklyn, Broadway Slavic, Union Miles. But mostly it's Chicago. It's a big city. People are buying up the floor, and the floor continues to rise by the day, and I'll show you that later. Right, let me quickly put myself back on, because we're going to move into the bottom corners now. This, on the bottom left, is the number of sales per day. So it's not mints, it's actual player-to-player transactions, and it's the number of them. And you can see here that we're kind of on a bit of an uptrend towards the end of the graph here, certainly from about the 3rd of September going through towards the 6th, 7th. And that looks like it's being carried by a combination of Chicago in blue, we've got Cleveland in orange, and it actually looks like an increase in pink towards the top there, which is actually Bakersfield. So there's actually a lot more secondary market activity in Bakersfield over the past week or so than you can see earlier on the graph. So that's a trend that I'm certainly going to keep an eye on. And on the bottom right here, we have the UPX traded per day. So if the bottom left shows you the physical number of deals being done, the right-hand side graph shows you how much UPX is actually being traded. And it fluctuates. You can see, since I started tracking the data towards the middle of August, we've been on a consistent trend up overall, with peaks where people are minting people are buying very valuable properties. And you can see that on the 5th there, that big spike in yellow, that was caused by somebody purchasing an extremely valuable property in Brooklyn. It looks like 10 million UPX plus by the looks of that graph. But overall, we're trending up. Certainly Chicago is not stopping anytime soon. It seems to be going up and up. This graph is really being carried mostly by Chicago, Cleveland, and Manhattan. We're not seeing a great amount of UPX being spent day to day in the other cities right now, but anything can change, and that's why I'm tracking the trends. Let's move on to the next section, where I'm going to talk about the East Coast in particular. Top left, you can see the floor price per city, and throughout this whole graph, we've got Manhattan in blue, Brooklyn in orange, and Staten Island in grey, and that colour scheme is consistent throughout the 3 graphs, so you can kind of have a look. And I do appreciate that this top left graph makes it look like Manhattan is the lowest price of the 3. That's not true. It's actually so far above the other 2 that I've had to put it on a separate axis, otherwise it makes the other 2 look stupid. Basically, story is Manhattan is very flat over the past couple of weeks that I've been tracking, and Brooklyn and Staten Island have actually increased somewhat, since I started tracking the data, from about 5,500 to about 6,500, which is actually, as a percentage, is quite a lot. But it's kind of maybe flattening out. We'll have to see how that looks over the next few days, especially since we just got the new city announcements. Now, in the bottom left, we've got the same 2 charts as on the first slide, but it is specifically for the East Coast. So we can see that the number of sales per day it's actually trending down a bit overall on the East Coast, and that's mainly driven by quite a dramatic drop in the number of Manhattan props changing hands. I don't know if people are just holding on to Manhattan. Maybe the people who wanted to sell in Manhattan have sold, and the people who are left are just holding on. That could absolutely be it. There is an increase in the numbers in Brooklyn as of late, but that's not enough to offset the overall trend. And there you go. In terms of UPX trading per day, you can see that even though Manhattan is rock bottom in terms of the number of sales, there's actually, you know, on the fifth there, it says 15 million UPX was traded hands, which is about half the total value. So those properties which are trading hands in Manhattan are very valuable, and I anticipate that is only going to increase in the future. Now let's move on to the right hand side of the chart, if I can move my head. This is all the collections in the East Coast. I've got to put the disclaimer that for this and for any of the other sort of charts on the right hand side of these slides, it's supposed to have all the collections, but it's only where UPX World actually recognizes the collection. So I know there's a few sort of missing bits of data in the background, but this is everything that I could get from UPX World, and we can see this is sorted by minimum sale price in UPX. So we can see the Great Kills, possibly as expected, is the cheapest in terms of the minimum UPX price at 9k. And if you're actually looking at the minimum markup, it looks like, just having a quick scroll of the data, it looks like Todd Hill in Staten Island is actually the best deal at 293%, which actually might actually be quite a good deal. But certainly just looking at the chart there, no huge surprises. I know that one of the standouts is Harlem in Manhattan being quite a low sale price compared to the other Manhattan collections. That's because there's a little bit of a glut of properties for sale in Harlem at the moment, I believe being sold all by one user. As that supply continues to evaporate, I anticipate the value of Harlem will continue to increase, but we'll have to see. I'm going to move on to the West Coast, where same story in terms of the charts that I'm showing today. Here we go. So it's interesting. The three cities on the bottom here, Oakland in grey, Fresno in Clovis in light blue, and Bakersfield in dark blue. They've all been very flat over the last week. The real story here has been Santa Clara, which has gone from 15,000 floor price. It actually peaked at 18,500 UPX for the floor. And it was actually looked like it was going to trend above San Francisco at one point. It's kind of bounced off there now, and it's gone back to 17,500. I think it's going to make another attempt at that 18,000, 19,000 mark in the near future, especially now that all the non-FSA stuff's been bought up. So that'll be very interesting to see. In terms of sales per day, there's been quite a dramatic increase in recent days, driven by, as I sort of mentioned towards the start of the video, there's a lot of activity in Bakersfield in terms of sales recently. Comparing that to the graph underneath, which is the actual UPX trading hands, Bakersfield has been pretty flat. So that sounds like it's a lot of quite cheap properties being bought up in Bakersfield. So it might be somebody trying to buy up the bottom. Could be. It'd be interesting to see if that holds. But yeah, other than that, it's actually there's been a small increase in a few other cities in the region. It looks like Fresno's had a bit of an increase. It topped 200, which is quite crazy when you think that just a few days ago it was never even above 100. So I'm not sure what's going on in Fresno. I never really rated it much as a city, but it could be that there's some value there. I'm just heading over to the right hand side. It looks like it's kind of as you'd expect. Woodward Park is the minimum sale price of 9k. Just looking at the markups of these Fresno properties in general, it's pretty crazy. Look at that, 600% for Woodward Park. Tower District, 1400%. It's like 1000% for a lot of these. And I don't know. I cannot justify that buying at that kind of markup. I don't know. Certainly, if I was planning on investing in the West Coast, I would probably focus on Bakersfield because it looks like the momentum's there. If I was an FSA player, I'd definitely look at Bakersfield. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. And finally, let's move on to the Midwest, which is a region that I'm quite excited about. I think there's going to be a lot of interesting price movements in the Midwest. Top left here, we can see the floor prices for Chicago and Cleveland. I remember I started tracking this, so you can see on the 25th, and the prices in Chicago just kept going up from 4,000 up to 4,300, and I thought it was going to keep going. It hasn't. It's stalled out since the start of the month, and it's still sitting about 4,200, 4,300. Obviously, I'm pretty confident that's going to go up. As for when, I don't know. And Cleveland was like absolutely flat, completely flat for the first few days I was watching it at 4,500, and suddenly it just rocketed up to 4,800, which as a percentage is quite high in a day. And it seems to have maintained that number, so it might have been some buyers buying up a lot of the floor in Cleveland, so we'll have to keep an eye on that as well. And finally, let's look at the bottom left-hand section of these charts. The overall sales per day and the UPX value of those sales have been pretty consistent across the last couple of weeks. Not a huge story to tell there. I'll be quite interested to see how that changes now that the new cities have been announced, and I should actually be able to capture some of that sentiment in tomorrow's data, so do keep an eye out for that, and please subscribe if you haven't already. In fact, I know you haven't because this is my first video, so why don't we get this channel off to a fantastic start and hit the subscribe button and the like button if you like what you see and you want to stay informed on the nature of Upland, the state of play in Upland. Why not? Let's quickly talk about this chart on the right. We've got currently South Shore and Logan Square in Chicago is what I'm tracking as the minimum UPX price, with Logan Square actually being only 140% markup. That's pretty good. I'd consider investing in that quite strongly. Now, I do appreciate there is a couple of collections of Cleveland missing from here, and that's because UPX World isn't actually recognizing them as collections at the moment. So when I extract the data, it's not picking them up. So hopefully in the near future that will change, but I believe this is a pretty comprehensive view in the meantime. I did want to quickly point out that these rare collections in Chicago, like Greek Town, for example. Look at this at the bottom. 6 for sale. The minimum is 10 million UPX. So people are not selling their rare Chicago collections. Wacker Drive, Chicago. 3 for sale. 3. Like, it's just unbelievable. People are not selling their rare Chicago collections. So if you do happen to own one of those, I'd recommend holding it. So anyway, that's all of my my data for today. So we're back to today's news. So I really hope you found that interesting and useful. I've got this set up so I can fairly easily get a new set of data each day, and I'm planning on uploading a video every day. If you guys want to see it, if there's sort of a specific view that you'd quite like to see, a certain graph or a certain type of data that you'd like to track, let me know in the comments below, and I will give it a bit of a look, and I'll see if I can get it in there for you, especially if it's something that multiple people have been asking for. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.